Why don't why don't you get your old lady to join? No? All right.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, this is class four, right?
Yes.
Four, not to be confused with four. So, yeah, are you? Yeah, good. So, our first question, we in the beginning of our sessions, we answer questions, and the purpose of it is because the original idea behind these classes was we wanted to make the Bible practical. We're very fortunate and we have access to an understanding to our spiritual text, which I found over 26 years of my practice that a lot of people do not have the same privilege. And so, very often you'll find there are in religions, the text is watered down. There's no specific explanation to what it means. God is a guy in the sky that's punishing and rewarding, and everything happens. Bad things happen to good people, and then you go into a wooden box and ask some guy on the other side of the box through a net to ask you to forgive him or forgive you and say 1,500 Hail Marys and you're done. So none of that is true. And so we wanted to give it a practical spin and a realistic perspective for people who have a texture in their soul and that our words and our understanding resonates with your sense of truth. That's really the agenda here. We're not here to convert anyone or make anybody Irish or Muslim or Jewish. That is not our goal. But it is interesting information. You'll let us know whether it's interesting or not, and we urge you to ask questions. So we start our sessions with questions that were asked by students or participants in the class, and one of them was from Maria or Mariana from Argentina. She's here. No? Yes. So, what was the first portion of the question?
The first portion is asking if all human beings get energetically depleted the same way, or if it depends on each person's emotions and bound.
Meaning, someone said something to me at the gym, and I went into a loop, and now that person is bad, and they're the worst person in the world, and they said something offensive to me, and I made him God, and now I'm looking for ways in my mind how to, I don't know, stuff toilet paper and the in the pipe of his exhaust in his car. So it happens to all of us. It's called a loop, a conflict loop. The answer to your question is simple. We all react to things differently based on our emotional upbringing, based on our intellectual perception. Some people are indifferent and they say, it doesn't mean anything, that it doesn't mean anything. That's how I learned to react to things. But for most of my life, for those of you that know me, I'm a reactor. And so if you don't have emotional capacity and no one has taught you how to be calm and not give meaning to meaningless things, then your perception of reality and your reaction will determine how you deplete yourself.
So, what if someone asks, what is meaningless? What do you consider meaningless?
Everything's meaningless until you give it meaning, right? You give it meaning. If I say, Savannah, I don't like your dog, you can give that meaning, you can give it meaning, right? Or you can say, react exactly like you just reacted, right? My father, I learned this from my dad. This is where I started looking at my reactions. He would pick me up. I worked in Taos, New Mexico for 4 years, or I worked in California, and I'd come to New York and he'd pick me up in his Hummer, rolling down the streets of New York City, barreling, hard. And he would be at the top of his lungs yelling at the taxi drivers. And I said, Dad, why don't you just open the window and shoot at them? He said, what do you mean? They don't know what they're doing. I said, listen, of course they don't know what they're doing. They just came from Bangladesh in a rickshaw. Now all of a sudden they're in a car in the center of New York City, the biggest traffic jams in the world. No, they don't know what they're doing, but they don't, it's not intentional, intended towards you. So really, it's meaningless.
Plus, they can't hear you.
No, exactly. They can't hear you, right? So if the windows are closed, you don't have to react to the guys from Bangladesh. They don't know they just cut you off. They're just driving. So we all do it. I do it. I just did it at the gym. I did it with the dentist's wife. It's all determined by your emotional growth. You literally, but what I also noticed is that people with a very intense sensitivity and a broad intellect, they have a tendency to give meaning to meaningless things. And in the moment, they latch on to some stupidity and they create something out of it. More importantly, there are also those that say, I know what you meant. No, you don't. You intertwined your stupidity and your observations into your deduction of what I'm saying and what I mean. I'm not scared of you. If I want to tell you the truth and I don't like your hair, I'm going to tell you. You don't need to predetermine what I mean. And that's another thing that people spend their time. It's a useless waste of time to constantly consider yourself superior because you're intuitive. It's a thing that I had to work on as a practitioner because I started my practice as a psychic medium. And so I had to refine not to control my deductions and look at people and say, oh, I know what you meant. No, I don't know what you meant unless you tell me what you meant. And I don't want to give meaning to something meaningless because it's very possible I don't know what you meant and I'd like to hear it from you.
I think we also get caught up in reacting based on the emotion of the moment. Whatever is going on in our lives in the moment, whatever emotions we're going through, that's how we approach the situations that are happening in front of us.
And that pours into your reaction because one part contains the whole, right? So to answer your question, the first portion of your novel that you wrote me, then to answer that is the answer is it all depends on how your emotional growth. If you have emotional stamina, you're not going to destroy yourself because someone sneezed in your direction. It wasn't intended for you. It doesn't have to mean something. And you could make it mean something in the moment because you're intuitive and you know what they meant and you can pull out your gun and shoot them.
Also, we have to consider that as hard and as difficult it is for us to recognize, it's a choice in the moment, the way we react. It's an absolute choice.
The biggest piece of growth that I developed as a result of my practice, I can tell you, is to curb the need. This is true spiritual growth. To curb the need to intuit what you mean. I'm psychic and I know what you mean. It's nonsense. Because if I'm unresolved and I'm in a bad mood today because the dog took a poop in the middle of the living room, I'm going to completely react to what you're saying and insinuate and give meaning to something meaningless and then rev myself up and create a conflict with you. By the way, we do this with our significant others, with our spouse, in our work relationships, everywhere. It's a very intricate detail about spiritual growth. All of you on this screen, especially my martial arts teacher, are extremely intuitive. Intuitive to the point where in the moment you can, I know you're watching it, you can deduct something and give it meaning in the moment and completely paralyze yourself with your own meaning and go to town with it and you swear that it's true, but it's not. You made it mean something. So that, to answer your question, the first portion of your novel, is to the answer is it's how we react to what is said to us and what meaning we give to it. So I'm going to share something I learned in 2007. Life is meaningless until you give it meaning. And you can choose the meaning you give to things based on your deduction. I could say, what? I could say, what? It doesn't mean I mean something aggressive. It means I didn't hear you. That's all it means. You can make it mean something that, where are you coming from? What are you saying? Why are you saying what? And it escalates, right? So now you've drained yourself of the entire uh, um, bucket of energy that you accumulated in your morning prayer. Now your prayer is meaningless. So all of you that have rattled nervous systems and react to everything, this is the issue. Because one other very important factor, y'all have a need to be right. I know what you meant. I know what you meant, right, Anna? I know what you meant. You said it, and I know you. You understand what I'm saying? That's the point. It's an incredible exercise. How do we curb the loop? What's the second part of her novel?
If there's alternative ways to realign to the source. So,
which means what?
Like, let's say the question specifically addressed the idea of, did Jesus and Moses, did they do yoga? That if you have, can you sustain yourself and can you find balance in 3 legs instead of 4? Do you need a proper base?
The person asking the questions for sure needs the proper base, but yes. But I can tell you this, that if you understand the process of how you redirect your thought and deplete yourself, then if you're not doing yoga and praying, you're not taking your medicine.
Okay, but what, can we talk about why yoga?
Yes, absolutely. Why yoga? Because this is a silhouette. It's a form as a result of the soul. If I'm consumed by my deductions and all of my conspiracies, and because I know what you meant, and I'm having a loop in my head, you know what I mean by a loop? I'm replaying the same scenario. She said this to me, and that's what she meant. And now I'm going to find a way to let her know that what she meant is really not true. And I'm off to the races. I'm in the swirl. Down the toilet I go. Or I get paralyzed and I can't catch any sleep and I can't do anything for myself because now I'm paralyzed by my loop. It's not true. We just determined that life is meaningless until you give it meaning. Why yoga? Because yoga is determined. It's confined to a space. It brings you to your mat, which leaves you in a space where you have to come up with solutions for your body. More importantly, if your spine and your nervous system is not in alignment, you're depleting yourself with every nuance of life. So you could say, well, some folks in my community say, they're animal poses, and of course the meaning of the words means something, and so getting into dog pose or backwards dog or forward dog or cobra, you can become the animal because you're saying it. So yes, that could be true. So then you don't need to say the names, you just do the pose. Why is it valuable? It's 5,000 years old. Whoever received it was brilliant. It moves your spine and it stimulates energy flow to every organ in your body.
Would you say also yoga, doing yoga, like getting into the pose and correcting the pose and going through the movement in your boundaries, right? Because your yoga mat is your boundary. So going through the movement and really correcting yourself as you go through it. Does that also kind of take you away from whatever it is that's going on in your mind, all the chaos, all the reactions, all
it tames the impulse to going to the endless abyss of insanity. It literally tames you. It tames your movements. It helps you focus on one body part at a time. It tames your breathing. It tames your nervous system. It literally, like observance in certain religions, it collects you into one place. And in the process, remember that your tissue, this here, all your fascia, it collects emotion. So folks that have a tendency to gain weight, what does weight come from? Holding on emotionally. So if you're resolving emotionally and then you get on a mat and you go one movement at a time, from one pose at a time, and you hold that pose for 5 to 10 breaths, I promise you, when you're done, you're going to need to lay down because it's an emotional experience as well. It's not an exercise. That's not what it's intended to be.
So you're saying that yoga is more than just the physical aspect of movement.
Absolutely.
Do you move energies while you do yoga?
Well, because remember, you're moving fascia, you're breathing, you're oxygenating your brain, you're alkalining your digestive system with the movement, you're pulling your cells apart so the cells start to receive energy, and that energy plus the breathing and the calming of the nervous system, it pulls you out of your insanity. So really, if you do it in the morning or you do it at 6:30 at night before you eat dinner, you're infusing yourself with your own strength and your intention. So, there's a saying that says, God helps those who help themselves. You're intentionally doing something and gathering yourself and your energy and your impulsive behavior, your understanding, your need to be right, because you're attending to yourself.
So can I do yoga and resolve my self-emotion?
You cannot. It's a remedy for insane people. It doesn't make you spiritual, yoga. There are many types of yoga. There are 2,200 asanas, movements. So is it going to make you emotionally stable? No, because you have to be able to, for the first part of our friend's novel, it said, how does everyone get depleted the same way? Well, some folks get depleted if the dog barks. It all depends on how you react to things. So once I reacted, instead of going to the emotional toilet bowl, the spin downward, I stopped myself and I asked myself, how did I contribute to this insanity? A guy said something to me in passing at the gym, and I made it mean something in the moment. In order not to spiral into the abyss of the insanity, I stop myself and I check what is that he said. He devalued, somebody obviously spoke to him about how I handle things, and he made a snide remark about my method. So I asked myself, this is a remedy. I'm sharing a remedy with you. First and foremost, I asked myself, how do I diminish myself? Because I'm getting diminished by an external person. It's a soul that's visiting me. And it happens so that he's in the wellness world and he's got a lot of followers. He drives his bullshit Rolls Royce everywhere because he's got a little nose and little feet. But regardless, he has a big Rolls Royce.
Was that an observation or a judgment?
It was both. That's Anna, by the way. So, so, so my goal, I can say a whole bunch of things to him that would probably make him crawl into a hole. But I have to ask myself, how did this appear for me? Because I diminish myself by constant judgment or by um, not honoring myself. And so I have an opportunity to see myself, an individual, a soul appears and challenges my way in passing, makes a snide remark and removes himself. He does come.
So do you address yourself first in a situation? Somebody either abuses you, is rude to you, says something, or do you address the situation in the moment with the person? What would you say is
My
the
impulse would be to address it with the person, but it's not appropriate because we live,
because if you address it with the person, it would come from a reactive place.
Yeah, because then it becomes a conflict. I'll make it into a conflict.
So again, we go back to the loop of giving it meaning based on whatever emotion we're feeling in the moment.
I don't. If there's no, if there's no touching involved and nobody does anything to you, you can basically say anything to me to go, sleep with my doggy. I don't care. It doesn't mean anything, and I don't have to make it mean something. But it does bother me. So if I'm that sensitive and it does bother me, I can deplete myself energetically. I can paralyze myself emotionally. I lose the entire day. I lose sleep over it. And I start to loop in my mind on why would he say that? What does that mean? Where's he coming from? I'm going to go handle it. What am I going to say? What am I going to do? It's a complete waste of time. Instead, my famous uncle, Peter Resnick, and his teacher would say, "What does this tell you about you?" No, it's not just telling you about you. It's a soul appearing before you so you can encounter how you treat yourself. Because if nobody makes you aware that you're abusing yourself, you'll never know. So here's an individual that challenges my methodology on how I help people.
So you could say there's specific steps to how to approach when there's conflict, how to approach the situation. It's the first step would be is to look at how did I contribute to this? How did I personally contribute to this conflict? Yeah?
Yeah.
That's the first step.
The first step.
Then you take it apart.
Yeah, if you take it apart, because everything in your reality is an expression of the inner you, then if you take it apart, you start to subside. You start to subside. So I had a conflict with my dentist's wife. She said a couple of obnoxious things. And so I went off the deep end to myself and then to my wife and, and on and on and on. But the truth is, she challenged something in me. She brought out the fact that she swore at me, which was completely inappropriate in front of the entire office. I swear. So when I recognize that I also swear inappropriately, that diminishes who I am because she diminished me. I didn't say one inappropriate word to her because I know her husband. I'd rather punch him in his teeth. But that's besides the point. You understand? So my point is this, that if someone diminished me, I have a tendency to diminish myself and what I do and what I say. I swear. If I swear, and she accused me of not remembering or insinuating that the figures were different than what I remembered. I made it a point to remember. So now she's accusing me of being a liar or exaggerating or not remembering. I need to ask myself, I do say things that and I don't remember. I can exaggerate. So I have to curb. So really what I'm saying is once I start to discern how this happened for me, not to me, but for me, then I get to see myself gradually. And then I'm really making a change that I want to see in the world.
So do you see the correction as you correct it in yourself?
No, because in the process, while I'm doing it, I want to go and find her husband.
Right, but in the process, as you make the correction, you see the correction happening in the outside reality, because you're making the correction internally.
Because if you're willing to always look at yourself, remember, this is what Christ said. Turning the other cheek doesn't mean somebody smacks you, you let them smack you again. And it doesn't mean to forgive. Because the impulse is not to forgive right away. But the impulse is the correction, the correct way to look at it is, what does this tell me about me? If aggression showed up in my life, there's aggression in me. If someone is neglecting me, it's because I neglect myself. The only way I can recognize it is because they're placed there as a soul, if you believe that you have a soul, and that you're constantly, Yogi Bhajan said, if you can't see God in all, you can't see God at all. So then your significant other is the inner you, your brother, your father. They're there to show you, if they're not making you important, it's because you don't make yourself important. They're not participating. Anna was first, actually. What's your question?
My question is that
no, Anna was first.
So if you recognize aggression towards you, you see it, and you actually do see it. You don't just walk by, but you don't react because it's sort of meaningless to you. Then it's not in you, or it doesn't pertain you, but it's there. It showed up.
Right.
But it was by chance that it showed up.
So we know, you and I both know, because you've been learning this for the last 20 years. I had an interesting incident that showed me the truth about this concept. My dear uncle told me at some point in my life that I had to bury some of the things I had. So I went and buried some of the things I had, and literally,
physically bury, or
physically dug a hole and buried some of the items I possessed. And then I, out of insecurity, I started. I lived in New York City as a young man, so I carried a knife. And he said, "Look, you're going to encounter, literally, I promise you can ask him, you're going to encounter the effects of your knife. You don't need it." And I went to the Lower East Side. I come around the corner on Rivington Street, and a guy was there with his child, and he had just been robbed and cut from here to here with a knife, which means I got to see the reality that my knife causes. You understand what I'm saying to you? Because your belief is constantly creating your reality. So if it unfolded, the scenario, and you're passing by and you're looking and you're watching aggression, there's aggression in you that you need to deal with.
But what if you don't care about it? Like,
whether you care or not, why weren't there fairies flying around and nuns praying in front of you?
Okay.
Right? There could have been rabbis standing in a circle discussing Torah.
So whatever you encounter, you really need to address in yourself.
Encounter within in your peripheral vision, right? So if you encounter it, well, it's in you so that you can see what it looks like. It affects you. If I encountered disrespect, it's a very funny incident I had with my older children's mom. I had yelled at her in the airport, and somehow my phone recorded me yelling. And I said, "Oh my God, I have a message." And I got to hear myself yelling. It was disturbing. But what I'm saying to you is, we're constantly encountering our belief system. Constantly. It's not a mirror. It's not a passive reflection. It's an expression. Because all of this is an expression of the soul's intention.
So even the moment you choose to not react to it, even the moment you choose to not giving meaning, to not look at it, then will it show up in a different way so you can understand it, so you can address it, so you can deal with it?
If it don't come out in the wash, it'll come out in the rinse.
So what if you just are not encountering it towards yourself, but you're observing a scene, I don't know, a robbery, for example, or something in the shop where
No,
they
let's
something.
stick to the robbery. It's an interesting concept, right?
And you're just observing it, but it's not towards you. It's just you see it from outside.
Mm-hmm. So there's a way that you're robbing yourself. Otherwise, the scenery wouldn't unfold for you to see it, so that you're robbing yourself.
So it's really an opportunity to see it in you.
To see yourself.
And what if something?
All the I want to warn you in advance. I don't, God forbid, want to make our time a session for an individual session for anyone. So I'd like to keep it to one question at a time. I love you.
Sorry. Yeah.
Okay, it's fine. I'm happy to see you on here, so I want to answer all your questions. Tell me, Mariana, aside from your novel, you have another question?
No, it's the same. I wanted to ask you that if I don't get the loop because I am thinking that what happened to me is very meaningful and terrible, but I have another loop. The loop is, what does this have to do with me and how this affects me and what is this negativity or aggression inside of me? And I'm all day thinking about that. So I'm in another loop.
Right.
It's my self loop, but it's anyway, I suppose it's not healthy.
It may require medication, but it's okay. Let's work with it. So the discernment process can suck you into a loop as well. So that's why yoga, breathing, praying has to be precise and at a designated time. Because all of this discernment and understanding, and not to avoid the need to get stuck in the loop, I have a simple suggestion. To avoid the loop, you take a piece of paper, not your phone and not a computer, and don't type it, get a pen, and you write it down so that you can get it out of your head. I did it. That's how I know it works. So if I'm in the loop about my dentist's wife, I would sit down and write her name, write what she did to me and how I interpreted it, and what it meant to me. Well, if it meant all that much to me, well, that's what I do to myself. I diminish myself by swearing. I diminish myself by not being precise. I diminish myself by not focusing specifically on amounts of money. I'm completely have been in the past and still at times a frivolous spender. And so all of those qualities in me are challenged by her. The fact that I want to go to her office and polish the floors with her, trust me, that doesn't go away. It can paralyze me. I have a few friends like that. And so when it does paralyze me, I don't want the paralysis. I'm not interested. I got so sick of it, then I realized that I don't want that paralysis. I want to be free of it.
So what happens energetically when you're talking about all this paralysis and you get caught and we go in the loop? What happens energetically to your soul or to your energy body?
I don't want to be frou-frou. I'm going to be completely realistic about this. What happens is the dentist's wife all of a sudden became God. Because I'm constantly receiving energy from my soul, and I'm an incredible manifester. Things happen my entire life exactly the way I want them to. But I'm so consumed by this degenerate woman who swore at me and said awful things that I'm now redirecting that energy that's intended for my soul and for me to be effective in the creative process into her. I've made her God. It's a violation of the second commandment. If that becomes, when you determine and you realize that you're a soul and that you diminish your ability to be effective in co-creating a reality you truly desire, when that becomes apparent, like in the moment, you understand, as soon as I made her important, that's it. I'm mud. I can't create anything. My nervous system is jacked. My acid level is up. My heart rate is up. My eyes, I look like I'm belonging in an insane asylum. That's it. I'm done. I don't want to live like that. I want to make sure Mariana got her question answered. Awesome.
So we disconnect from the flow.
You don't disconnect from the flow. You redirect the flow. That's the truth. That's why it says, thou shalt not have any God before me. That's why. Because the flow is constantly providing for you. The flow, I mean God. Right? It's constantly fueling your soul, and you direct its process. All God does is create. How? Through you. You chose to be a seamstress or I don't know, a matchmaker. This is what you do. You have an expertise about it. You direct God's flow into it, and it unfolds as your stage. You want a bigger audience, you have to have a bigger energy. So you fuel your energy, but prayer, yoga, understanding, resolve, you recognize your responsibility in how reality unfolds for you.
So in the same way that you can recognize something bad, a bad situation, a conflict that comes in front of you, when good things come in front of you, then you can also recognize them in the same way?
Of course. The idea is when you make your soul a priority, you're going to start seeing the results. It's not next year or next week, it's instant. If I get up in the morning and I breathe and I pray on time and I train on time, every single phone call works for me. My sessions are incredible. My contacts, people call me out of nowhere for things that are just incredible. Because I'm in alignment, I'm present. I'm not consumed by the dentist's wife. I'm not contemplating conflict. I'm not consumed by what I should do, what I could have done, what I should have said, and so on. It's a complete waste of time. But it only becomes apparent when you realize that the other aspect of you, the effective co-creator of reality, exists. This is why we started this class. I want to get back to center because I want you to understand that the Bible and the commandments embody the crucial steps in order to get yourself out of the insanity. That's what it's for. The entire thing. Name one story and I'll show you how it works.
So I have a question.
Yeah, we have to address Maria's questions also. She also wrote a novel.
But I mean, we addressed it indirectly. What she's saying is, we're human beings and we're constantly reasoning. Mm-hmm. And when we have an issue with somebody, how do we take action? Like, if we don't take action in the moment, then you become accomplice to their abusive behavior towards them. So some people tend to think over and over what the best solution is, not to hurt this one, not to hurt that one, to find the best solution for everybody. So how do you, and you get stuck in the loop.
Okay, so let me I want to comment on something.
So this is another kind of loop.
Yes. So I want to address this loop. Please, I'm asking you, for all of you life coaches, practitioners, and wannabe psychiatrists, it's not your job to manage everyone's relationship and to determine whether someone is psychologically savvy or what do they call them? A narcissist or some other label. It's not your job. Now, when you determine that for yourself, that it's not your job to determine the person in front of you and their psychological shortcomings, I promise you, you'll stop creating conflicts. Because the tendency of an intellectual people that have a broad view of reality or a sensitive, the tendency is you encounter someone without realizing that your deductions about the person in front of you are creating your relationship. Meaning, your perception is affecting how you relate to that person. That's why it says, don't
speak about others, bad or good. Just don't.
Thou shalt not. Your what?
Covered your wife?
No. Slander your brother or talk about someone behind. Yeah, right. Behind your neighbor's back. For that reason, because all of you smarties, right, that have huge intellects, you want to engage your intuitive skills. You encounter someone, and your first assessment and perception of that person is, oh, they're this. No, they're not. Your intuition is skewed by your mood and your intellectual need to be right. So if you hold back and don't perceive and don't waste your energy on determining who they are and what their shortcomings are, whether you know morphology, psychology, biology, whatever G you know, it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean anything, then it doesn't mean anything, because you can make it mean something. When you recognize, this is a difference, there's a huge difference between what the person that inspired me to do all of this, my uncle, and his teachers, the huge difference between what they teach and what I teach. It's your perception that creates your reality. So if I encounter you and I know you're persnickety and reactive, I'm already going to flex. Why? Because I'm already waiting for your nonsense. Now I've made a space. I don't allow any of our relationship to be fresh and new. I'm already ready for you.
So you're saying if I allow myself for a moment to perceive you in a different way, and I don't come with my already set observations and perception of you, what I think you are, who you think, how you think, oh my God, he's like this, he's gonna react like this, he always does the same thing. But if I pause for a moment and allow myself to see you in a different way, then you're gonna behave in a different way for me?
Because remember that the energy I receive from the Creator, I direct it with my intellect and I affect reality based on my belief system. That's what it means. Our belief creates our experience. So if I believe that Nico is always late based on our past, then I drag my past experience. By the way, I don't know that he's late. Rusan told me that he's always late, his wife. And I never met Nico. Now I drag Rusan's past experience with him into my future and make a deduction that has nothing to do with me. I've already sabotaged my relationship with him. Because my energy of my soul and what I receive from God effectively, constantly, consistently, every moment affects my reality. So I've now sabotaged any possibility of Nico being on time. I've now determined him as weak because he can't be precise. He doesn't know how to be. I've now made determinations plus my observations and my need to be right. There's no reason to have a relationship with him. I already destroyed it. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy brother. That's why. No other reason. That's why. Because I determine what I encounter. So if I'm at peace in my heart and I'm not in my toilet bowl swirling down, and I work on the impulse to be right, I don't need to be right. Okay, the guy said he must have talked to someone. For a moment, I went into my swirl and into my abyss.
But this actually applies to either good or bad, because if I come to you and I talk to you about how I love this person and she's so special and she always extends herself, well, that's how you're going to perceive her. I'm setting up already
a standard.
Right, a standard for you to perceive her the way I see her through my eyes.
There's two issues here. Marus, I didn't forget about your question. This has everything to do with what you asked. I just want to make sure we're on track. You with me?
Yes, yes, yes. I'm here.
So look, my brother comes to my house and says, "Oh, I went to the movies. It was great, and 95 was a disaster. Don't take 95 to the airport. It's going to be a disaster." You just lied to me. You just set me up for failure. This happens all the time. Anna says to her husband, "Don't take this route because we're going to be late." I'm not picking on Anna. I'm just saying. No, you're not going to be late because you were late last week doesn't determine your outcome today. The past doesn't create the future, the now does. And if you're a connected person and you live in the moment and you engage your soul in receiving energy, then you now determine and your outcomes are based on your perception. You're not going to be late like you were last week or how so-and-so was late last week. You don't need to sabotage your relationship, and you don't need to tell me how great I'm going to think the movie is. To me, sci-fis are nonsense. I can't stand them. They might have been great for you, but they're not great for me. So please let me decide. You could just say, "Listen, I saw a great movie. It was great for you. That doesn't mean it's going to be great for me."
Okay, what if the issue, I want to address the issue of 95. It's traffic time.
Mm-hmm.
I know for a fact
But there's a traffic time, right?
Like there's a time in the day where traffic is heavier. Is it appropriate for me to say 95 is going to be?
It's not. I'll tell you why. And I'm telling you, all of these things, I didn't deduct them because I read a wellness book. I received it and I experienced it. I'm telling you, I had an experience where my older kids, Theo and Luella, were living in Buffalo, and I lived on 83rd Street and West End Avenue in Manhattan. And as usual, I left late. And I get on the highway, and it's packed. I mean, to the point where there's no room between the cars. And I think to myself, my God, my ex, she's going to go to the gate because they were 8 and 10 years old in Buffalo. And if I don't show up on time, she's going to leave. And that's a problem because she likes to create problems. My story. So I'm driving down the highway and in a panic, I get off the exit. Now I'm going through, I don't know who knows New York here, but through the Triborough Bridge, I'm trying to get to JFK to fly to Buffalo. I get off the highway and there's a semi truck on my right. And I, out of literally desperate, half in tears, out of desperation, I scream to him through my passenger window, how far is JFK? And he goes, "Look." And I look, and the sign is in front of me, JFK 1 mile. I promise you, I don't know how I got there. It's a phenomenon. If you can just stop creating obstacles for yourself and determining how things are going to unfold, the entire thing is a phenomenon. All of it. Every step of the way, every moment, I'm not Tony Robbins. I'm not interested in changing anybody. I'm telling you things that I've experienced for myself factually. Anyone I've ever wanted to contact, anything I wanted to accomplish, I think, and they appear. I haven't closed a deal in 3 years, but the contacts always appear. The best and the kindest and the most accommodating, and people and things appear. They appear based on my belief system. So if I create obstacles for myself with determining how Savannah is going to react to me in the next class. She has a story, she's upset, blah, blah, blah. She's going to say this. No, she's not. She's not, because the past doesn't create her future. The now does. And so my perception of her, I allow it to unfold. My wife said today, she said, "How do we share the idea of let go and let God?
Well, because somebody said, I'm not trying to exclude God in my process of thinking how to address a situation.
Marusha said.
Yes. I actually include God. And I say, God, show me the way.
So there's no guy in the sky. Let's start with that. God is everything. It's all around you. It's every soul. It's every person that comes into your life. That's God.
So God is always showing you the way.
Showing you the way. Now, how do you get out of the way? If you learn how to discern for yourself and not go into the toilet bowl and swirl downward and get paralyzed, when then you if you don't have a piece of paper in the moment, just sit down and ask yourself, what does this tell me about me? A client said, I'm not teaching them the way they want to be taught. This ain't Burger King. You can't have it your way. Right? That's my response. But there's a part of me that has to ask myself, why is my work being diminished? Because I diminish myself. So they don't see my value. Because I don't value myself. I don't take care of myself. I roll out of bed and go and teach people. So then if I don't take care of myself and don't value myself, I receive a pompous douchebag that says to me, oh, you're not teaching me correctly. This is what I want. I have my own program. What do you mean? I'm an expert in my field. I don't need to prove that to my student. I need to be that. So if I'm that, then I don't receive students that diminish me because I'm diminishing myself. I lower my volume. I diminish my value. I turn the light down, and then no one can see me. And my schedule is flat. No one comes. No one calls. The moment I'm back on track, everything works. I can work 14 hours, for those of you that have been here on retreats, 14 hours a day. It doesn't stop here. We start at 9:30 and we end at midnight.
So how do we let go and let God?
You pull yourself out of the way. You remind you, remember, God is a flow. It's not a person. So asking it or pleading with it is a complete waste of time.
But there's a lot of people that pray directly to God. God help me. I need this, or my child is sick, or
it's a way of connecting with God through this talk.
So look,
even if I don't consider him to be a guy in the sky, I consider him to be sort of an entity, energy, something.
What if
or all over the place?
Let's change the narrative, okay?
Mm-hmm.
What if I said to you that the creative force, which you and I call God, is in you, and the way you supplicate or ask for what you want, you're insinuating that it doesn't exist. You're verbalizing need and you're pleading and begging for no reason at all.
So by asking externally, you're implying in a way that there's a separation.
That there's no left.
You are here and God is there.
Absolutely. And so there's a separation from what you desire. Remember, a lot of the religions you guys were brought up in, there's a reason why mysticism, yoga, meditation was excluded, so that you don't become powerful yourselves, so that you always adjust to a system and someone in the hierarchy of your religion tells you what and when to do and how to do it. So you start to become a sheep. But if you include all of these things, which are readily available for everyone, Islam, not jihadist Islam, but Islam in itself, no matter how you look at it, it creates order. It is the fastest growing religion in the world. Why? Because it offers community, it offers solution, it offers ritual, it offers brotherhood, it offers a ton of things. It gathers people from their useless, purposeless lives with no sense of urgency, and it implies that the Creator, if you bow down to Him 5 times a day, you will have peace. It's a fact. I don't care what language you pray in. If you pray, you engage yourself in ritual expression of gratitude, right? So is there a time for supplication? Yes, but supplication, meaning asking for something, has to be expressed with the understanding that the creative force already exists in you. Abracadabra, we spoke about this in the last class, means I create as I speak.
Yes, but you said about Islam, yes, and the fact that they pray 5 times a day. They pray to whom? Not to the same separate guy in the sky. I mean, they're not praying to that part of God within them.
So, in their understanding, remember, all of our belief system, our foundational belief system, comes from what we were raised in. And in their understanding, that which created them is separate from them. It's there and they're here, meaning they're relegated to the human experience. They either make the best of it or they nullify themselves and wear burqas and cover themselves and minimize woman who is actually the co-creator of reality. The point is that regardless of what they connect to, they have order. They pray on time, precise. They have a sense of urgency. Whether they pray to the guy in the sky or they understand the mystical understanding of the fact that we are God's expression and we are godly, so then we are co-creators of reality. Obviously, somebody at the UAE got the memo because they got unlimited resources. And so they're filthy rich. I mean, disgustingly rich.
Right? So there needs to be a consistency.
There is a consistency. There's some kind of order. So then when you are in supplication and you're asking for something, it has to be verbalized properly. In my religion and yours, Marush, there's something called Psalms. And if you read the Psalms, apparently, according to the masters of my religion, they say that it's the most powerful prayer. But in truth, it's not prayer. It's deliberation. If you look at David's writing, because all the Psalms were written by King David, most of them, well, they were refurbished. They moved the furniture around. But if you look at them, they're not prayers. He's in contemplation with God. He says, why do you do this to me? Can dust praise you? Why am I constantly facing these obstacles? So the desire to better himself is what makes his contact so precise. The desire to engage and understand that there is a creative force. And the truth is, David's obstacles were his internal obstacles. He was schizophrenic, bipolar, or whatever. He had all kinds of issues. So really, all the Psalms is him talking to himself. So all of you, ones that have these internal deliberations, are in the loop. As long as you engage yourself in understanding that the loop and the incident is happening as a result of you, then you're in deliberation on how to better yourself and allow the creative force to seep into the part that you're depleting as a result of the conflict.
But in order to address the conflict, the key is to abstain yourself, to curb the impulse, to constantly be in the loop trying to solve it, because truly, as human beings, we're limited. And if we try to impose our way as opposed to allowing what we call God to come into our lives, then God is unlimited. And our options are limited. So we're constantly limiting ourselves by trying to find the solutions as opposed to just letting it be. And when you let it be, then you find unlimited or perhaps solutions that you wouldn't even take into account before.
More the reason for, all spiritual people avoid religion. Why? because they want to do what they want to do when they want to do it. But if you're insane, like myself, and you are a reactor and you have your loops and you want to analyze everything in their mother, well, if you have a religion and it has ritual, well, then those rituals collect you from your impulsive behavior. That's what they're for, your rituals. Whether it's to go to church and light a candle, what happens when you light a candle? The fire burns into the unseen world and starts the flow of energy. For Jews, Christians, Catholics, whoever. Why do we go to church? Because God is in church? No. It's a place where you go to disconnect yourself from your mundane reality and you remove yourself. You make an actual effort to go to a place and to submit yourself to the will of the creative force.
But you definitely enter into a bigger, more powerful vortex of energy because everyone who's in that place is praying.
Correct.
So there's a lot of energy that's being stimulated in these places, and you get recharged in a way. You have to do your part, of course, but there's a difference.
So the need for ritual, boundaries, and religion is absolute. You have to have ritual. People are dingbats. They don't know when to get up, what to do, don't have a sense of urgency. They don't know what they should choose, how they should choose it. Remember, everything becomes clear if you have a devotional life, if there is ritual, and if you understand the stories as guidelines and not some fairy tale. More importantly, you just start to develop a sense of urgency. Well, remember, if you have a sense of urgency towards yourself, then the world around you develops a sense of urgency towards you because it's just a response to how you treat yourself. Then the light comes on. Well, if we were standing at a crossroads into the woods and I had a flashlight and you didn't, who do you think would find their way? Me, because your light's not on. So when your light is not on as a result of your ritual, then you fall back into your scared intellectual deductions. She meant this, and she's a liar, and I have to go punch her in her teeth because this is what she meant. So my deductions and my intellectual perception and everything that I know flows right into it because there is no light, there is no God in my deduction. It's just anger, frustration, and judgment. But if I sit down and look at myself and say, well, what does this tell me? What does this mean that this idiot talked to me this way? Well, there's an idiot in me because I diminish myself constantly. I'm not precise when it comes to figures. I'm flippant about money. I'm abrasive and harsh when I swear and say inappropriate things. So I got to see myself. Well, if I curb those behaviors and I start to change them a week at a time or a day at a time about me, I let in more God. What does that mean? I'm not consumed by my emotional reaction. I allow energy from the Creator to seep in and fuel my heart and my mind. It completely envelops my nervous system and I stop reacting. Well, when I'm not reacting, the light stays on. Then I know what I want. Then things are clear.
We had a couple questions regarding making people God, but we addressed it through conflict. Mm-hmm. And there's one question asking, how do you balance it if you have a new person in your life to prevent that new person of becoming your God? So let's say you meet someone or you fall in love, and naturally all your thoughts all day long are about this person. So how do you prevent?
That means you need to get a life. No, look, people fall in lust all the time. I mean, in love, sorry. But it happens. You know, you meet someone and you decide that below the waist is important. It is important. You encounter someone, you have instant chemistry, they're great, you want to spend time with them. The moment you start an internal dialogue in your head with them and you start determining how things are going to unfold, that's it. You've made them God. How do you curb that impulse? Create a life for yourself. Every holiday in our discipline, in our religion, is intended to get us out of the idea that we're somehow defined by something. We have at the end of this September, we have something called Yom Kippur. It's we fast for 24 hours because we're not to be defined by food, first and foremost. Because truly, when you fast that long, you see how much energy you have. You're literally disconnecting yourself from digesting so that you can receive energy for the coming year.
So you're emptying yourself.
Empty.
So you can receive more.
Absolutely.
You let go of the old to receive the new.
Absolutely. We have every Friday night in Judaism, we have Shabbat, which is the Sabbath, right? Which is for Christians and Catholics as well. Why? Because we disconnect ourselves from the need and the desire to be defined by our gadgets and our thoughts and our ritual and our slave behavior. So we're constantly curbing the impulse to be defined by something. We don't accept, really accepting a diagnosis as being defined by something. If I'm at the end of October, we have another holiday that where we eat outside in a shed with plastic plates and forks, simply to remind us that we're not defined by the quality of our dishes and the quality of our home. We can be with God wherever we are. So ultimately, if I look back, how do we stop ourselves? I'm not defined by my dentist's wife. You should not be defined by the person that you just met. And if you're consumed by how things are going to unfold for you, you need to get busy. Because if that becomes your only focus, you can sabotage the outcome because you're already trying to determine and to dictate how things may or may not unfold. You affect, remember that your perception creates your reality. So then you intentionally curb the impulse to have future talk. You remind yourself in your mind, here I go, this is my uncle's exercise. Here I go making up stories again. And if you have to do it 100 times a day, do it. Because remember, it's not some wellness trick. You're really stopping yourself from the impulse of affecting the outcome of your chosen relationship.
It's constant training.
It's constant. After a while, it becomes you understand what's happening. I really have gotten to that place where I understand clearly what's happening. I understand that the dentist's wife, that doesn't stop me from going off the deep end. It didn't. The guy at the gym said some snide remark, and it affected me. So I trained myself. It doesn't mean anything that it doesn't mean anything. And then if I want to see what the meaning is, I sit down and I write it out and I say to myself, what does this mean to me about me? Why is he challenged? Nobody is challenged by the way what he heard about my methods and so on. Because I'm questioning my methods. I'm reinventing myself. That's the issue. Once I embrace it, once you recognize that you did it too, to yourself, you stop abusing yourself. And they no longer become God, and you diminish the need to make them grand and greater than you. These are questions?
We've addressed them. Oh. There was a question.
It was on tendinitis.
And tendinitis, if that equals emotion and anger.
Yeah, of course. You know what tendinitis is? This is the healing aspect of the Bible. If everything is a form for a function, if you learn how to think like this, you don't need to be psychic, you don't need to be intuitive, you will just understand what's happening to you. What are tendons? They're connective tissue, right? So if they're hardening, tendonitis means that there's pain. There's only pain where there's no God.
There's an inflammation in the tendon.
If there's, what is inflamed? Inflammation, my watch just said, inflammation in the tendon. What is inflamed? Heat. Well, because you're pissed off, your heat is affecting how you connect because it's connective tissue. So your health is speaking to you. Stop the anger and frustration and stop trying to get ahead of yourself so you can maintain the flow and there's fluidity in your connection and not heat. Yes, Anna.
What if somebody tells you that you're talented and great and you can do something, and you just tell them that, no, that's not true. I can't. I feel like I have an imposter syndrome.
Imposter? You feel like an imposter?
So how do you?
Okay, let's address that for a moment. Okay, let's stop the question there and let me address it. I'm getting back to, if you can't see God in all, you can't see God at all. I think I talked about this for those of you that have done retreats here. You know the story when I went to see Elaine Thomas in Fredonia, New York. I had seen the angel Raphael in 1999. And I called a friend, a family friend, Gerald Epstein. I said, listen, I had an experience. I saw the angel Raphael, and he told me that I would change the way the medical community looks at healing. I said, well, he's the head of Mount Sinai Psychiatric, so he was the appropriate person to call. But he said, look, I can't help you. I'll give you a number to call. And he gave me a number for a woman named Elaine Thomas. I called Elaine. I was 30 years old, maybe less. And she picked up the phone. She said, I never answer this phone. What can I do for you? I said, I had an experience. And I gave meaning to meaningless things. She said, where? In the bathroom? And I thought she was being funny. Like, what do you mean? What are you saying to me? I said, you know what? I'm going to come and see you. And she didn't even think anything about what I said. She said, no problem. Come. I'm 50 miles west of Buffalo. Come to my class. Sign up. We're good. So I fly to Buffalo. I drive to Fredonia for 2.5 hours. I get to her class. I sit in the back with dark glasses. And she starts demonstrating her abilities. And she says, after the fourth person, she says, young man, can I come to you? I said, sure. She didn't know my name. She said, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to pay really close attention to this young man. He's going to change the way the medical community looks at healing. I almost died. And I thought, wow, nobody's better than me. How does she know? Right? So she then started to, after a couple of other people, and let me wallow in my.
This was significant because it was word for word.
Yeah, for sure. Aside from that,
they didn't know.
She said, I'm going to give you an exercise, each one of you, 22 people. And she gave me an exercise first because my last name starts with an A. She sat me in a chair and she proceeded to have 22 people take turns washing my feet. By the third person, I was hysterical. Literally, I couldn't control my crying. I was like boo-hooing. And I turned to her, I said, why did you do this? And she said, because you need to learn how to receive. I said, what? She said, for who you're going to become, if you can't see God in everything and the person that is speaking to you, and you don't learn how to receive from every soul that you encounter, you end up being self-sustained. You will never be able to take compliments because you are self-sustained. No one can offer you anything, not a compliment, not advice, not help. You end up separating yourself from humanity because no one is at your level, and really what they're saying, they don't really mean. And the truth is, you don't know how to receive. And that's a major issue. I encountered it. That's how I know. What did it mean for me? I had to start looking at everyone as not a messenger. You can drive yourself nuts. But if God is our teacher, then God is in everything. It's Anna, it's Rusan, it's Mariana, it's everyone here is not just a quality of me, they verbalize questions that I need to address in myself. I get to hear myself. And I want to be the change that I want to see in the world, which means I'm constantly readjusting my views. I also need to learn how to receive. People give compliments. I say, oh, I don't really know. Do I know that what I do is effective? Yes, I know. At this time, 26 years later, in my practice and in my life, I've filled out the space that I'm in. Am I constantly correcting myself? Yes, by choice. So if you can't take a compliment and someone says to you, you're really talented and you don't believe it, it's because you don't know how to receive. You don't consider. You're so busy fixing everyone around you. You're so smart and so vigilant about everyone else. You don't have the time to look at them as you. So they can't really offer, no one can ever offer you anything. If they can't offer you anything, then you're self made because they come to offer, that's God visiting you. You are talented. I know for a fact. I was a witness when you sat and did your homework at 4 o'clock in the morning in LIU, in your car, no less. So, how are we doing with time? What else?
We wanted to address the fact that Moses said this incredible quote, and it says, a heart that he told the people that they had attained a heart to know, eyes to see, and ears to hear.
I want to address this. Lucy, get out of here.
Rachel, can you repeat that, please?
Yes. Moses said to the people that 40 years after their birth, as a people, they had attained a heart to know, eyes to see, and ears to hear.
Which means the moment we understand the text not to be a story but a guideline, they say my uncle taught me an interesting saying that the words of wisdom are only available or the words of wisdom are only something like existed to the ears of understanding, which means when you have a spiritually, emotionally, intellectual life that is infused with understanding, then you actually have ears through which you hear. You hear substance, you see substance, you understand substance. So what Moses did for the people, for the Hebrews, and for humanity, because he brought down this incredible technology for humanity, he gave us through following that understanding, gave us the opportunity to see the texture of life and understand the technological value of how we participate in our own creative process. More importantly, gave us the tools to curb our impulsive behavior and collect ourselves to be more effective in co-creating reality. So the entire text is a realized process.
So he said this to the people because they actually went through the entire cycle of the Bible, the Old Testament, the way we know it, the Torah, and it became part of their texture. So once I don't want to say they were pure enough to receive it, but they were living in a way where they could actually feel the texture of the substance. Yeah.
Remember, contrary to popular belief today, the promised land is a place that exists in all of our lives. The promised land is an external physical manifestation of an energetically appropriate place for what we've chosen to live by. So as a result of overcoming our own internal battles, remember, Joshua fought many battles before he entered the promised land. It's we who fight with ourselves. In order for you to get to your respective promised land, you have to overcome your internal battles. And so that abyss we talked about today, that toilet bowl, that distraction, that depletion that you cause when you're in your loop, the constant future talk and the chatter and the nonsense that you create with your perception. Oh, I know this person. I know what they're going to do because I'm intuitive and I know. You prevent yourself from going to the promised land. That's what the promised land is. Contrary to the rest of the world that says, oh, God promised these people a land. No, we earned it because we chose a way energetically, intellectually, psychologically, emotionally, and physically to live within the confines of a system that constantly elevates us. It's a technological structure that raises our vibration through ritual and commitment to collect ourselves from the impulses of the human experience. Therefore, as a result of that choice, we entered a reality that is a sustainable place for that kind of life. So they can jump off the roof and yell and scream, but it belongs to us. It always did. Thank you for coming today. Look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right. I'm glad to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you, bud. Thank you, Nikki.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Questions, please write your questions. They structure the class. They're super important. Just don't write me novels or you're going to hear about it. I love you. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.